and everything, all the articles and things that they used to function the temple were kept in that building. In the Beit Avtin, as we already explained it. And so that cistern number 28 would sit underneath that with a conduit going to the top. Yes, sir. Yes, so exactly. So you have the cure would sit right there, and then you have the conduit would run like this way, and then it come up to the top. Exactly. All right. So at the top we have a drainage system. Let me read this whole thing. This is by Condor's description of this curious subterranean complex. He says, it's consistent with those of what Wilson and Warren from the Palestine Exploration Fund had diagrammed or sketched. It has an entrance with a flight of steps at its east end, ascending southwards to the surface outside the platform, and a manhole at its west end, downing from the platform. The tank is a long passage with recesses on the north and another on its west end running south. The main passage had a semicircular vaulted roof, but the branch on the east is cut entirely in the rock. The floor is 48 feet, roughly 14.6 meters below the platform surface. The rock surface is 2,425 feet. At its west end, 2,400 feet on its east entrance to the east, where R remains the door. The former level is 10 feet below the platform level, and the latter level is 8 feet below the present surface of the sanctuary. The modern name of this tank appears to be Bir Er Ramanea, on the wall of the well of the pomegranate is the name of it. Okay, just remember the well of the pomegranate. Sir Warren places the altar of the temple over the northwest end of the number 5 tank. According to Lieutenant Condor's plan, the manhole on the northwest extremity would have just outside the water gate of the priestly court. So what is he saying? So when you go back to that diagram right there, you actually have a water gate that would be right along here, where it's right near the Beit Avtin. Okay? And that water gate would take you to where the cure is, and that's where you did the washings. And then once you went through the washing, then you'd walk straight to inspect the altar itself, which would be located at a north-south, ran in a north-south angle. And that would sit right there. Okay. I'm going to read just this little bit here, but it says, this is according to him, it says, according to Schick, the main body of the cistern lies 15 meters below the platform of the dome of the rock, while beyond the platform of the position of the steps it's stacked is 11.8 meters below the haram. At this spot, the surface of the haram lies 3.2 meters below the level of the inner platform. 2 shift openings were seen by Schick, but he noted that there was also others which had been blocked, including that shown in Wilson's plan. In the PDF archive, it says, situated at the northwestern corner in an angled niche, this and another shaft opening 6.5 meters distance, possibly the square one marked by a cross and an angled niche. This and another shaft opening, read that again. Wilson's drawing is situated to the south of the former, within the western arm of the cistern. Schick associated with one-time well wheel that served as the inner court of the Jewish temple. And so he's confirming, okay, this is 1880, okay? So we're talking 140 years ago, Conrad Schick confirmed, the third witness, the fact exactly where the copper or the bronze laver was, the cistern, the conduit that fed to it, the function, everything. He confirmed it, and so now when they go build this, they go build that temple again, it's all lined up according to this. This is what's an amazing thing, because now when somebody comes and says, well, I think it's over there, you say, well, let me explain something real quick. We have the cistern that supplied the water to the lepers going through their mikvahs and everything else. We have a cistern that took care of all the entrails and the cleansing of all the animals, found it. We have the cistern that took care of the copper basin, the washing the hands and feet for the priest. We have each one of these cisterns, and they mark, and they basically, they're parallel to each other. They face each other. One's 50 feet down, one's 30 feet down, one of those 28 feet down. And all 3 of those they have found. So we know for a fact what water supplied what on the Temple Mount. Let me ask you, on your design and your plan, you tell me what supplied the house of the spar and what supplied the water for that. You tell me in your plan what supplied the cure and the water, the copper basin. Because the problem is when they start coming up with this, they can't say anything because they have no proof, because it's just ideas that are thrown out there. There's no scientific evidence, there's no archaeological evidence, there's no engineering evidence of what we have right here. Okay? So now, from now on, this is going to eliminate all these excuses. This is why. So I heard somebody saying this the other day. Well, why doesn't the Temple Institute at least listen to them? Well, it's quote unquote. And I would say the Temple Institute reserves the right to ignore what they're saying because of one reason. If you have clear evidence of 2 to 3 witnesses, right, and you have vast amount of knowledge through not just, rabbinical sources, but people that have nothing to do with the Palestine exploration, but have nothing to do with, rabbinic writings and things like that, and they're confirming the same thing. We got parallel witnesses, plus what Josephus written. Why would you listen to something that has absolutely no evidence, other than some archaeologists who found a lot of different buildings and things, but they haven't supplied them with a plan on how their water system worked? All right, let's read this. It has recently been suggested by Patrice that cistern number 28 may have been used to collect water from the space on the southern side of the Herodian temple known as Bet Horadah HaMayim. Literally, the place for bringing down the draining of the water, or simply the water drain. The Mishnah Midot 4:7, which we're going to read here in a minute, says this identification is most improbable because the Bet Horadah HaMayim is referred to within the context of description of the dimension of the temple sanctuary, or the Hekel, which is widely held to be stood on the very close to the spot occupied by the Dome of the Rock. It is described as 3 cubits across, which equates to about 1.4 meters, and compared with 4 meters for the width of the main gallery underneath the chamber. Rittmeyer writes, this is from 1992, he writes, has identified the cistern within the Golan cistern mentions in the Mishnah, Midot 5:4, by Kaufman. He believes it to be the great cistern referred to in the Mishnah, Rubin 10:4. Okay? And this is what it says, and we're going to read this. This is from the Midot 4:7. Okay, and you want to write this. This is the translation from Neusner. But you're going to write this down because the Mishnah wrote specifics on this 1,700 years ago, 1,800 years ago. They wrote it down, great detail, okay, by Rabbi Jacob. And he wrote this part of the temple, recorded it. So 1,700 years later, we have these Brits who come in there, they do the exploration, and they confirm it. And then about 100 years later, we have other authorities coming in and confirming in 1992 with Rittmeyer and others. They begin to confirm exactly what it said in the Midot 4:7. So, without becoming political about this is why this is so important. It says right this, the Midot 4:7, from east to west was 100 cubits. The wall of the porch was 5 cubits thick, and the porch 11, the wall of the sanctuary 6, and inside 40 cubits. The dividing space was 1 cubit, and the Holy of Holies 20. The wall of the sanctuary 6, and the cell 6, and the wall of the cell 5. Okay, so let me explain what he's talking about. He goes, as you're going from south to north, okay, and you have a cell, then a wall, then a sanctuary, then a wall, then a cell, right, and another building. As you go through there, he's given the measurements because he literally is right there writing it down. So you take those measurements as he says in the Mishnah, okay, in Midot 4:7. When you take those measurements and you figure out that the cubit is what? What do we figure the cubit was? Yeah, about 23.4. It's just a little bit shy of 24 inches, okay? And you take that measurement, and then you take some of these other theories, and you go down and you place these measurements over theirs. It doesn't line up. There's not enough space where they're saying it's supposed to be. All right, so these are other more confirmations. So let's read on. Number 3 says, from north to south was an area of 70 cubits. The wall of the passageway was 5, the passageway 3, the wall of the cell 5, and the cell 6. The wall of sanctuary 6, and its inner area 20 cubits. The wall of sanctuary 6, and the cell 6. The wall of the cell 5, the space for draining off water 3 cubits, and the wall of 5 cubits. What does it talk about? There's that. Remember I told you it's like a manhole, and the manhole will go down into that conduit, and then go into the cistern. Well, he's writing about that manhole where to go into that conduit. He's writing about this 2,400 years. 1700, 1800 years ago. He writes about this. Maybe further along like that.
So then we come hundreds of years later and we find it exactly as it was written in the Mishnah. So these are confirmations that begin to line up. Okay.
All right, so let's kind of dig into this a little bit. But the Gola cistern was located under one of the 6 chambers.
Now this is kind of a play on words, but the word Gola means circular. Okay, and basically when you have this, when I'm trying to get water to come up, right, I turn a wheel. That's what the wheel is, called a Gola. Okay.
And so in the Gola, it says the Gola cistern was located under one of the 6 chambers on the south side of the temple court. The Gola cistern was there, and a wheel for drawing water was set over it. From thence they drew water, enough for the whole temple court. All right? And that comes from Mishnah Midot 5:4. That was translated by Danby. And may also be inferred that rainwater collected in the Bet Harodot Hamayim, okay, on the southern side of the temple, must have been channeled into a cistern. Subterranean chambers are referred to beneath both the Temple Mount and the court of the temple, and that was according to the Mishnah Parah 3:3, written by Danby, which translates it. A considerable quantity of water was required on the Temple Mount in the period, not only for drinking purposes, what we stated earlier, but also for the ritual purification, the mikvahs, the worshippers, and for cleansing of all the sacrifices. A channel which collected blood from the sacrificial altar of the temple is mentioned as extending as far as the Kidron Valley in the Mishnah Yoma 5:6. Okay? This is a lot of important details right here, but there's confirming everything that we've kind of been laying out. All right. So do we have corroboration in Scripture? This is always saying, I find it in the Mishnah. I can find archaeological evidence. I find this, but does the Bible tell us about it? So you go to Ezekiel 47:1, listen what it says. It says, he brought me back to the door of the house, which is the temple. And behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. Okay? For the forefront of the house was toward the east. What is the house? The temple structure itself, right? And the waters came down from the right side of the house on the south side of the altar. Okay? Then he brought me out to the way of the gate northward and led me round by a way outside the outer gate, by the way of the gate, and looks toward the east, and behold, there ran out waters on the right side. Okay, here we got Scripture, we got Mishnah, archaeological evidence, we got three different people from different time periods corroborating all this, and we've got Muslims using these different cisterns and everything else. What more do you need? That's what I got to ask the question. What more do you need to prove that the Temple Mount was the location of the temple? All right, so let's just get a kind of a picture here of what you're looking at. What you see in black is the temple structure and its buildings. What you see in blue would be the cisterns. Okay. The little grayed out area is kind of basically magnifies the area we're going to talk about. So if I come over here to cistern number 28, which is right there, okay, that's what you see over there in that picture there, okay, and you can see how it sits right under the big Tina's building. Any questions on that? Okay, maybe worrying. Okay, this being the east, north, south side, western. There'll be hotel over there. Yes, the top of this picture would be the west side. The bottom would be the east side. On these, so remember in Ezekiel 47, it says on the south and east side, we had water protruding coming up. Okay, and that's where cistern number 28 sits. Okay. Now the three chambers in the north were the chamber of the hewn stone, Lishkat Hagazil. And by the way, next week we're going to talk about the different cells and the function. We're going to get a little bit of that. When we finish that, then we're going to go into specifically the function of each one of these buildings that we're talking about, and we're going to end up with the different gates and the functions of the gates and what happens there. Okay. But it says right here, the three chambers in the north were the chambers of the hewn stone, called the Lishkat Hagazit. The chamber of the bowl, Lishkat Hagolah. The chamber of the wood is the Lishkat Ha'etz. The supreme Sanhedrin, Gabalah, set in judgment in the chamber of the hewn stone, and the Lishkat Hagazit. Half was consecrated and half was not. Now,
What they're referring to is the Beit Avtinas. Okay, it's another name for the Beit Avtinas. Remember, the area closest to the altar had a higher level Kedushah. The area where the Sanhedrin went had a lower level. Okay, so the closer you got to the altar, the level would come up. So that's why you could take somebody of Israel and you can bring them before the Sanhedrin, even though they might have been a priest or being brought before the Sanhedrin because they didn't have the same Kiddushah as a priest. They could go on the other side of that building. Does that make sense?
Okay. Now the chamber of the bowl, the Lishkat Hagulah, had a well, which is what we're talking about right now, from which water was drawn within a bowl called the gagal. Now that word gagal is wheel.
Just help you with this. So the exiles were called the gali or galut. Okay? Because it was understood if they cast them out, they would eventually come back like a wheel. Okay, that's where the term gali comes from, right? The word ben gali would be sons of the exiles, ben gali. The word Galatians, is root is in the word of exiles. Okay, or galut.
Had a well bore from which water was drawn from the bowl, gagal. The well supplied water to the entire temple courtyard, which is called the Azarah, that's the inner courtyard. And the chamber of the wood, the Lishkat Hayetz, was situated behind these two. It was a chamber of the high priest, the Lishkat Kohen Gadol, Lishkat Hayetz, and also the chamber of the Panhedrin, the Lishkat Panhedrin in the Mishnah Torah. It's describing all these different buildings.
The key here is they're saying that the wheel, the Hagulah, that's what they're talking about. That's the one that would turn and feed water into the copper basin that they wash your hands and feet. Okay. There, as soon as you walk through that building, what got you out was a water gate. And you also had a water gate going as you're exiting the temple platform. And then you had a third water gate down at the bottom of the Ophel near the Pull Shiloh Kettle. So there's three places that were called the water gate. Okay? One of them was on top right near the Beit Avtinas.
Yeah. Now, this is from Mishnah Midot 5:4, and I'm only going to read the group number E, but if you can see right there, it says, the office for the exile, there was a permanent cistern, and a wheel was placed on it, and from there they did draw water for the whole courtyard.
So literally, when we've been talking about this thing number 27, that wheel, they would pull it and it would just, all the water they needed, if they just needed that, it's saying from the Mishnah that would supply all the water function. And that's not even considering number 28, number 30, number 29 we spoke about earlier. But this alone would provide all the water needs for the temple service.
All right, so this is an example of what they would do. In the Beit HaMoked,
It's the top right, that's where the living quarters for the priest. So in the morning when they would come knocking on the door, they would go down the stairwell, and below, we haven't even talked about that, but there was a cistern that fed mikvah poles below that place, and that's where they did their cleansing. They would come back on, second knock would come, and then they present themselves before the captain of the priest, and then they would draw lots for that day. If it's your lot to work, let's say on the altar on this back that day, then you would go through, there's like these little sails that you'd walk through along on one side and the outside, and you wouldn't have to go into the Azarah at all. So if you follow those arrows, you come down into the Beit Avtinas, and that's where that wheel was. You turn the wheel, and then the priest would wash their hands and their feet, and then would lead the Beit Avtinas, and they walk straight out, and you can see right here, this is where the altar was, and they walk right out there, and they begin to function and working on the altar and doing all the temple service from that point. But you see they start from the Beit HaMoked, and every day they would walk there, do the cleansing and go in. So, any questions on that?
Underneath or
There were sails, so they'd be up top.
Okay.
So once the first knock came in the morning, it's about 3:30, 3:45, a knock would come early in the morning. The captain and the priest would go and knock, and then they all head down and they would start doing their bodily function, what they would do. And that was off-centered, so they would not lose their holy, the Kedushah, their sanctification. They would not lose it. Then once they got the second call, they would go into a room, and they'd all be in circle, and then the captain would basically he'd call up different positions and jobs for that day, like the lighting of the incense, or the altar, or whatever may be the function, whatever their job was that day. They would draw lots, and then as soon as they were done with that, they'd all take off to their positions.
And they go through these little sails
That I'll show you there. Okay? And once they went to their place, they would do the washing the hands and they go through their functions. You see right here?
I see.
Okay? So it says, each morning the Kohen selected by lot to send to the Mizbech began the morning preparations for the service. He entered the Beit Avtinas, which was right there, and went within the building to the Lishkat HaGolah Golah. That was the wheel that supplied, the washing the hands and the feet. He activated the Bukni, which was a gagal wheel made of wood, which drew the water up to the kior. You start pulling that wheel, it's suction, just like a well you'd have on a farm, you start cranking it down, the same thing. That wheel would activate, the water would come up from those cisterns and go into the kior. He washed his hands and feet. He proceeded to the Mizbech, which is the word for altar. And other Kohanim hurried to the Beit Avtinas to wash their hands and feet before entering the Azarah proper to aid in the preparation of the Mizbech. This goes from the commandment that you cannot get into the courtyard without washing your hands and feet first. So they had set it up this way. My teacher explained that during the Tabernacles days, what they did is they had a little tent that's you never see this in the drawings of the tabernacle. But they set a little tent with a mikvah, and where they're going there, and they would be on the outside of the tabernacle. They'd wash it, and then they had an opening. They'd walk right into where the altar was. We don't see that in all the drawings because most people don't go talk about it. There's very little information on that. There's more information on the temple function. Okay. All right, so this comes from Joseph Good in the Measure of the Pattern. I want to read this little. It's a little technical, but I think it just fills in a lot of gap, which Joseph Good does. It says, in the Hama of the Sha'ar Mahamayim, a channel water, 1 amah, which is basically it's a portion, which is a cubit, deep by 1 amah wide, went through the Sha'ar Mahamayim. This channel must have originated within the gate and flowed inward to the Azarah. Water generally is not found at the mountaintop, but rather in the valley. Naturally, a question arises to where the water originated. That's a question that everybody's going to ask. Where does this water originate? Okay? Below are the various texts that speak of this channel and some rabbinical components concerning it. In the Pesakim 5:8 it says this: as its procedure was on a weekday, so too was its procedure on the Shabbat, except that the priest rinsed the temple courtyard, the Azarah, without the consent of the sages. Rabbi Yehuda says he will fill a cup with mixed blood and throw it into the ashen against the altar. The Mizbech by the sages did not agree with them. Okay? And then we read in the Art Scroll, Pesakim, page 138, it says, a canal, Ahama, of running water went through the temple courtyard, the Azarah. When the Kohanim wanted to rinse away the accumulated blood from the floor, listen to this, they closed the canal, the Hama, this little conduit, they closed it off so the water would back up and it flooded the floor. Okay? And today we would use hoses, right, to wash everything else. They closed off these things and water would come up and it'd come out on the floor and flood it. Okay? Then they opened the canal, the Hama, allowing the water to run out, carrying with it the blood and the refuse. So it had a system of plumbing. It was, it's pretty amazing back then. And these are the different sources that you see right here. But this comes from the Measure of the Pattern by Joseph Good. So, in a nutshell, okay, as we conclude today, the Beit HaMoked were their living quarters, in the main buildings. Over there, the Beit Otzrot was the house of the treasury. Down here, the Beit HaNitzot, that's where they prepared the animals, and that's where they rinsed the entrails and they cleansed them before they placed them on the altar. Okay? The Beit Avtinas had the Sanhedrin, the Great Sanhedrin, and kept the incense, and it also had the laver or the kior, which we've talked about. Okay? In the morning, when they would wake up the priests, they would go through these sails along the courtyard, but not in the courtyard. Okay? And literally, if you can see, there's an aisle right here. Imagine a wall being right here, and a wall right here. You can walk through a cell, which would be basically about a little over, it would be about 2 cubits wide, and you'd walk through these cells. Okay? And that's what I was reading earlier. So in the Mishnah, they begin to measure each different cell so they could figure out how much space was on the platform itself. And then that's where they would finish their responsibilities in the morning. All right, that's good. It's a little shorter today because we covered a lot of areas. Go ahead.